pardon?
Except bloody ones.
Liv is the girl, Finn's the pony. Yeah.
If I fall asleep, start snoring, I do appreciate.
That's okay, I won't be offended. What is the time?
12 o'clock.
Okay, we told you to give it 5 more minutes extra and then that, but I'm hoping this is it, because then I don't have to stand. How are the girls? Are they alright? You should have bought them. So we could get married there, because I asked and they were like, oh, we haven't got the today, but I just want to go a little bit more in depth about the supplements, because obviously we did do it on our Facebook page, so there was some information on there, but I just wanted to go through everything just a little bit more. So the whole point of this is so that, are you going to join us? So the whole point of this is just about being able to teach everyone how to possibly prevent it, and then if it does happen, obviously, like yourself, you're on your own. So if you get your horse in and you think it's getting colic, or you think it's showing symptoms of colic, it's just to try and help you to not panic. So obviously you guys have seen colic firsthand. You've dealt with the colic situation yourselves. So it's kind of scary when you're there on your own. You get your horse in and you know something's not right, but you don't know what to do. And obviously, if your horse did have colic, laminitis, or it was having azoturia, you would immediately bring the vet, but the vet is 2 hours away and tells you to do something. It's just about you having now confidence in your own decisions to make the decision. So we'll start off with temperature, pulse and respiration. Do we know what our temperature should be and our pulse and our respirations? No. Any idea?
Yeah, well, pulse should be around, I don't know, 40.
Yeah, so it's 36 to 40. The best thing to do is to take it for 15 seconds and then just timed it, because trying to hold your finger to count the horse's pulse for a whole minute can be quite tricky, especially. So there's two places. So I've got a horse in my head. So yeah, so you've got the if you look on the horse here, on this picture here, so see where the throat lash is?
Yeah.
So if you go under there, you can count it under there. You have to have a little feel. So different horses, so like Podge would take a little bit. Yeah, so it's literally it's basically there is what it would be with us.
Almost
So you've got,
like a human then.
yeah. But obviously something like Podge, so a big heavy cob, you'd have to have a bit of a dig around. But whereas Cracker, who's an Arab, you'd probably find it quite quickly. Also, something big, like a big heavyweight cob, his heart rate, pulse and everything is all going to be slower than something like Xena, who's a little bit lighter and a bit finer. Hers is going to be naturally quicker. The other place to find it is, so you've got your leg here. Never take the pulse with your thumb, because obviously you've got a pulse in your thumb, so that's a bit that feels a bit weird. So if you run the fingers down the back of the tendon, and you get to this sort of area here, it will feel like violin strings is the best way. If you feel really lightly, a little bit like on the back of your hands, those like that you can feel like the greeny bits and stuff. So it's just there, and then just really gently press it, and then that's the best place to find a pulse. Obviously, that's a good one if you suspect laminitis, because laminitis is an infection here. So this pulse here will be literally pumping, and that's your first indication that we've got a little bit of an issue with the feet. But I tend to go for both of them. But I think with it, oh, you're right.
Esme's just joined in.
Okay. So you've got this place, and obviously under the jaw as well. I think you can see sometimes where sort of on the cheek pieces are just next to the eye. You can pick up one there, but that's a bit hit and miss on if you can actually find it. So feet and under the jaw is the best place to find pulse. So yeah, 36 to 40. Temperature. Any idea? So 37.5 to 38.5. Yeah. So any higher than that. So when Tippy got strangled, hers was 41.4 or something. So she was like through the roof, and she stayed at that for about a week. But again, same with all three of these, pulse, respiration, etc. The best thing to do is, if you've got your own horse, is to every sort of fortnight or once a month take it and make a note of it, so you've got a note of what you know is normal. So Tinkerbell, her temperature when I took it a while ago, she's naturally quite high. So if she came in and I was away on holiday and you took it and saw that it was like 38, you'd message me and go, oh, it's a bit high. I'll be like, oh no, that's fine, that's normal. Any higher than that is not, or any lower than that is not. So it's always a really good idea once a month to have like a pony diary and just to make a note, especially with Xena, because obviously she's had issues in the past. So if you can make like a note of just making a note of their temperature, pulse and respiration, then you're on top of it. Okay, and Cracker obviously also, because he's a bit of a hypo in he sometimes, bless him. Hey? What's that? So temperature in the bottom. No, sadly not. Yeah, it's so thermometer. Spit on the thermometer, straight into the bottom. Hold it for a minute. It will bleep. They're really good nowadays. They're not like the old-fashioned ones where you have to sit there and count. They bleep at you when it's time to take it out. So that'll give you a good reading. If you're a little bit worried, give it a sort of half an hour and then take it again if you're thinking, oh, I'm not sure if that was a right reading or something. And then breaths, 8 to 12. Again, so you're watching for a full out and then in, okay? And then that's per minute. Again, depending on the type of horse, Xena's might be a little bit quicker than Cobb one. So if he's there at rest, he's just finished eating his food and he's really laid back and everything, it will be quite laboured and quite steady. Whereas if the hunt's just gone past, it's going to be like, Okay. Yeah. So, and that again, that's why it's really important for you to make a note of it all the time. So you can, it'll be your first indication whenever you think laminitis, colic, azoturia, a Cushing's outbreak or something. It's your first indication. Those three are the first indication that there is an issue. And they're the first indication, because the vet will say to you, if you ring up and say, I think my horse has got colic, he'll say to you, what's his temperature? That'll be the first thing he asks, what's his temperature? Is it stressed?
I put them here. Have this out. Do you want a biscuit?
You can have as many as you want. She's Chloe not offering you any of the special cookies that she's done. Have you eaten them all?
Absolutely not. Not very nice.
You are?
Snacks.
What, in the hoof wall? No, not in the hoof wall. So we'll come to obviously the laminitis thing later. But if they've got laminitis, they'll have really chronic hand. Yeah. So no pulse there. You might be able to get a pulse here if there's laminitis coming through. So yeah, there'll be a real pulse, and sometimes you can actually see like it literally pumping there. So don't forget. I mean, I have looked into getting a real horse's leg actually, like a deceased horse's leg. I put my name forward for one that you can like open it up on a hinge and you can see all the tendons and stuff inside. So these are all made up of hundreds of veins, tendons, everything. So yeah, when there's an infection, this whole leg will be pumping, and you can very often see the blood literally pumping here, a little bit like your temple. So, but yeah, no, you can't feel any pulse or anything in the actual wall itself. So yeah, so colic. What do we know about colic? What is it?
It's like almost having an upset.
Yeah, exactly. So there's different types of colic. Anyone know what the different types of colic there are? No. So choke is up here. Choke will very often come before or after colic. So that's why it's like super important. So the main types of colic, you've got the gas colic, spasmodic colic, impaction colic, and sand colic. So sand colic is pretty much as it is. The horse is digested, so it hasn't been out on enough grass, and it's been out on a dirt paddock. Charlie at Bovington got it. So they've digested loads of sand, and it's basically sitting there at the wall, and then it basically builds up and makes an impaction. And you can imagine how hard. Imagine getting a balloon and filling it with sand. You imagine how heavy that would be, and that is going to cause an impaction, and then the horse is just getting, that's probably a draining job. So yeah, so that's not that common. I say it's not that common. I imagine that it's actually probably a lot more common than people think it is, especially people who have got laminitic ponies who keep them on dirt paddocks and they've got nothing else to eat except lick dirt and eat dirt because there's nothing else to eat. And sand colic is actually probably quite common with a horse like that. But I've only, touch wood, seen it once. So, but yeah. And so yeah, so we'll start with the impaction colic. So as it basically is, what it is, it's an impaction. So that can be anything from sand, a foreign body that is eaten, or like mouldy food that it's basically like grown inside the gut, and the gut hasn't been able to break it down, so it's basically fermented in the gut. That can also cause the gas colic. So the gas is a build-up of gas in the stomach, a little bit like bloated wind with you. So horses obviously can't be sick. So when you're feeling like, oh God, I don't feel very well, and sometimes I think I might go and be sick because it'll make me feel better, they can't be sick. So yeah, so they've obviously only got a one-way system. Food can go down, but nothing can come up because they have a cardiac sphincter here in their throat. So it's a one-way system. So yeah, so that's the gas colic. And then spasmodic colic, which is probably the most common of the colics and probably the one that's quite distressing to see, is, as it says, it comes in big spasm. So they'll come in from the field and then suddenly they'll just turn themselves inside out, they'll be tucked up, their temperature will be through the roof, their pulse and respiration will be mental, and then for a few seconds it's fine, and then it all comes back again depending on how bad it is. Which one did Sina have?
Stick to it down her nose.
Yeah, she had two. What? had the impact when she had the one that you were just talking about.
The spasmodic, yeah. So the spasmodic usually comes in with every other colic, because if you think when you feel ill, if you've got a really bad stomach ache, you'll be like this. Okay, so the spasmodic colic will come along with the others as well. But yeah, so she had the impaction colic. Did they know what it was that was in there, or?
Just to build up her food.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think it, because when she was out in the, I mean, it was when you first met, you got the big field. She was out in that one for the first time, because they were all and she started galloping around.
Yeah.
Tracy wasn't there, and then she
So there was probably a lot of grass that she hadn't had all winter, that she'd probably just gone and filled her boots and just gorged.
Like you at Dave's restaurant.
I'm like that at days too, I'm afraid, yeah.
Good though, isn't it?
You should see my husband. But yeah, so that's probably what she did. So she probably gorged and ate and ate and ate and ate and ate, and then she ran around on a full stomach. So yeah. So obviously going on and just talking about the stomach, a horse produces a bucket of acid every day in their stomach. So if you think of that combined with loads of lush grass and galloping around, all that was sloshing around in her stomach, and she's tiny, isn't she? So
Bottle of lemonade.
yeah, basically.
Oh, is it like when you feed swimming, like if you eat and then you go in the pool?
Yeah, they tell you not to go swimming on a full stomach, don't they? So yeah, it's pretty much like that. So you know how you would feel if you ate like 17 donuts and then went for a swim. But anyway, so yeah, so they're the colics. So we'll just go through the symptoms now, so knowing if your horse has got colic. So what do you think the first sort of, how did you know that Xena had colic?
Well, I went up and she wasn't eating.
Yeah.
And she normally, whenever she can.
Yeah,
But that's what she could do.
Yeah, she wasn't doing anything. Whenever she took a step and she had to stop because she wasn't feeling very well.
Yeah.
And then her Tracy and that.
yeah. So like you, if you had stomach ache, you'd be all tight and tense and everything. It's the same with the horse. So they don't want to move. Well, there's two different logics. Sometimes they don't want to move. Sometimes they want to roll. And I know one of the questions last time was, if my horse has colic, can I let it roll? And it used to be, no, you can't let it roll, you must never let it roll. But now I think there's more research into it. And personally, if my horse had colic, if the environment was safe, I would let them roll. Obviously, so my horse gets cast. If she had colic, I wouldn't let her roll in her stable because she would get cast, and then that would be another issue. So I'd have her on a lunge rein, and I'd take her out to the field. If she wanted to roll, I'd let her roll. Sometimes movement is quite good. So Buttons at Bovington had it, and he was put in a horse lorry and taken for a drive round the tank route, just to try and like move him around and get him moving. So there are a couple of different logics. So I would let them roll, but that's a big can of worms to different logics, different opinions, whatever. But yeah, so being tucked up, pouring at the ground, if they're pouring and pouring and pouring, sweaty, obviously their pulse and respiration will be up because they're distressed. Anything else? Yeah, so they look round at their stomach a lot. That's usually the first thing that happens actually. They'll look round at in some cases they'll turn around and they'll bite their stomach because obviously they can't. Hello, Labrador. It's me. Hello. Hello. I thought I recognised your shiny, beautiful dog.
You can meet my voice. I'll sit.
You sure?
Yeah. Oh, can I pinch up a little thing? Is that your little
Cool. There we go.
On there, is that all right?
if it cracks, it's because
I'm too heavy for it, but we'll find out.
I think you'll be fine. So turning around, biting at a stomach, because remember, obviously they can't speak to us, so that's their way of saying something hurts, I'm feeling quite uncomfortable. So what's the first thing you should do if your horse has colic? Yeah, vet. It's literally vet immediately. Even if they're just a little bit uncomfortable or they're looking at their stomach but they're okay, even if they're looking at their stomach and then they go and eat a little bit of hay, just straight out vet, because the thing is low colic, it can go from bad to horrendous in like snap of a finger. So yeah, the vet will come out immediately for that. They'll give them some anti-inflammatories, maybe a bit of sedative, just to try and help them calm down, because horses are drama queens. They do think they're dying at the best of times. So a little bit of sedative just to also relax all the muscles. Because again, like you, if you've got stomachache, the first thing you do is tense up, which can make the issue worse. So yeah, they'll give them some anti-inflammatory just to help to calm them down, and then it kind of goes on from there. They might suggest surgery if it's something like impaction. That would possibly be well, it would be surgery on that one, but that then goes on to your vet's decision on each personal case. Gas colic can usually be eliminated with some anti-inflammatories and some pain relief. Spasmodic depends on what caused the spasmodic colic. But yeah, most of the time it is a vet trip up to the nearest. I think the nearest one is Salisbury. But yeah, so that's colic. Okay.
Should you take hay and water away?
Water, they can have little sips. They're probably not going to want to drink, but food to be taken away. Because obviously, if they've got an impaction, you don't want to be adding more into the ingredients. Yeah, I mean something like quite a greedy horse. So Flame probably would be dying, but he'd still be up for eating. So yeah, me. So yeah, so different horses, but most of the time, if they've got colic and they've got stomachache, they won't want to eat anyway. So like you notice that Xena didn't want to eat because she felt terrible. So that is probably what's going to happen. But the vet would say to you, take all the food away, no food, don't even give it a polo. So yeah, prevention. So with most of these things, obviously, sometimes bad luck can happen, and you can be the best owner in the whole world, and colic and laminitis can still happen, etc. So, but I am a firm believer in prevention in certain situations. So what sort of things can you do that you think would help prevent colic? Yeah, so no sudden changes. So if so my horses don't get fed in the summer at all, but I don't get to the 1st of October and then suddenly give them a heap scoop of chaff and hope that they'll be okay. It's gradually introduced to allow the stomach acid, the stomach to expand and to settle into the routine. So yeah, so any food changes gradually. Even if you've got your horse on a scoop of chaff every day and then you think, oh, I think I want to add some competition mix, you wouldn't suddenly like chuck in a whole heap scoop of mix to the situation. You'd gradually introduce it over a period of a week. And even if you then decided to change feed, you'd mix a bit of that chaff with this chaff, and it's all done really gradually. Same as a dog, if you were to change a dog's feed, you wouldn't just go, I'm just going to buy a brand new feed and just suddenly start my dog on a new bag of feed. Everything is done over a slow period. So, anything else?
Wet feed?
Yeah, so wet feed, keeping it nice and soft, so we prevent that impaction and choke, obviously. So anything else? Movement. So movement is the key with horses with colic. So if they're in a stable for long periods of time, obviously impaction can occur because they're not moving. So it's like us when we've got a bit of stomachache, going for a walk to walk it off. What do you do on Christmas Day? You eat your Christmas dinner and then you all go for a walk on Christmas Day. Yeah, just to try and like get everything moving. It's the same with a horse. They've got to have turnout, they've got to move to allow everything to move in the stomach and to get going and then to pass out the way it's meant to. So it all has like a big knock-on effect, which that will twinkle on the azoteria as well. So yeah, so movement is the key. Good hay, lots of fibrous feed. Okay, horse can't live on cereal type feeds anyway. It's got to have good quality hay, plenty of fibre in the diet. Obviously, again, like us, fibre keeps everything moving and what have you. So, and going back to that bucket of acid, it's got to have something to soak up that acid. It used to be years ago when I was learning to ride that if you wanted to go for a ride, you didn't feed a horse just before you ride. And now they actually advise to give them like a handful of chaff or at least a hay net just before you go for a ride, just to help settle the acid in the stomach. Which, of course, back when I was learning to ride, it was like a no-no. Like an hour before exercise, they were starved. Like they had to go on an empty stomach. So it's quite interesting how everything changes as you're going along. So I think the same still applies. Obviously, if you've come back from, but that's just common sense. When you come back from a hard ride and the horse is a bit puffy, you wouldn't then chuck its evening feed at it. That's just common sense. Yeah.
Do you feed before you travel? But that's true.
Yeah.
They know. And
Yeah.
What I do.
I do. Yeah.
Bribery. To line the stomach.
Yeah.
It's going to get acid or ulcers. Then I'm gonna
Exactly.
feed it. That really-
Exactly, and that goes back to, so I said earlier, a horse produces a bucket of acid every day, so you've got to have something to absorb all that. And I would personally, I mean, if
They used to say no, didn't they? Like 4
yeah,
hours of food,
nothing. But I do think like half a scoop of chaff just before you're about to go, it's not going to. If your horse is gonna get colic when it's in a trailer traveling somewhere, that will come from stress and oh my God, we're going hunting. Yeah, like excitement and stuff, not the feed that you've just given it. So half a scoop of chaff will be beneficial for them because it will just stop. Yeah, just like you would if it was a normal feed, and just take that portion of chaff out of that feed. So don't do the feed and chaff because then that's another, we changed the diet today. So say you make your feeds up in the morning for the day, take a handful of that chaff and a handful of that chaff, put it in the scoop and use that to bring them in like you would your dog. If your dog has a bowl of dry food in the morning, if I'm going training, I'll take a cup of that dry food out, put it in my pocket and use that for training. So I'm not giving any extra. I'm not changing the diet. I'm not adding to it. I'm not taking away from it. So yeah, right, you are so lovely. Laminitis. So we'll go on to laminitis next. So does anyone know what laminitis is? Pretty much, yeah. So Cushing's. We're not going to go. Last time I kept getting swayed over to Cushing's. We're not doing Cushing's today. No Cushing's today. But yeah, so Cushing's is pretty much like diabetes for people. Now, there's lots of, it used to be 20 years ago, if your horse had laminitis, if you said to someone, oh, my horse got laminitis, it would be, oh, you must own a native pony and they must be clinically obese. Now, it's not. They've done more research in that anything can get laminitis. Tippy has laminitis. She's a 16-1 Irish sports horse. She's had laminitis, but she's had laminitis because she's had damage to the foot, so there's a weakness there. And obviously she's got that cancer in her foot, so she has that weakness in her foot. So I do have to watch her. And like I said, years ago, it used to be if you had a Shetland, that's why you have laminitis. Touch wood, I've got a Shetland who has never had laminitis, and they got out the other day. So and he didn't get laminitis then. So what were they on, about 15 acres? And he wouldn't be caught. But if he'd have got laminitis that day, I would have put that down to the fact that he caned it down a hard, stony track to get to the lush field. So that would probably be the trigger for the laminitis, that damage and that impact to his feet. You right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fine, thanks.
Yeah.
You know they have to get muzzled because if they eat too much, they get laminitis.
Yeah. So it's the sugar and the starch in the grass that causes them to get the laminitis. So again, there's a couple of different ways. So the main reason horses get laminitis is sugar and starch in the grass. Okay, it goes into the bloodstream and it releases, and it affects the laminae. So if you imagine this is the horse's hoof. Inside is the pedal bone. So it's kind of like a little dog biscuit type shape. Around it is the laminae. So when they get laminitis, the laminae gets inflamed, and obviously because of the structure of the horse's hoof, the laminae can't actually swell. So it's pressing against the horse's hoof. So all that pain. Imagine that you've got a thorn under your thumbnail and it's infected and it's getting bigger and bigger and sore, more and more sore. That pressure that you can feel and you'd put it up to your face and it would be hot and it would be pumping, wouldn't it? Because we're going back to what we said about finding the holes in the foot when they've got an infection in there. So yeah, so basically the lamina is expanding and swelling, but it's got nowhere to go, which is why very often you see them do that stand where they stand back on their heels. You see laminitic ponies stand, lean right back. They're trying to relieve the pressure of that pain. In really severe cases, the pedal bone will actually drop through the sole of the horse's foot. If that happens, it's kind of like, that's it, really. No go going back from that one. Molly, cover your ears and hum. That's a yeah, you know, so it's down the bad route, yeah. Because obviously that they're not designed to have something fall out of their foot. So with laminitis, the key is management. So if you've got a pony, so Tracy's done really well. She's keeping them off that long lush grass, and 9 times out of 10 it's those really nice spriggy bits that come through. And people always think, oh yes, it's springtime, they'll get laminitis. That hot, warmy weather we get in October, November can also be really bad. It's best to graze your horses between 10 and 3 if they're laminitic. So obviously you're missing the frost on the grass, and my Shetlands don't go out in the field before 9 o'clock in the morning, and they come in at about, what, 3, 4 o'clock every day, just so they're not exposed to that dew and that frost on the grass. So I know they had a really lovely little Welsh mountain pony called Donut, and he was absolutely beautiful. He got laminitis the 5th of November and was put to sleep on Christmas Eve, because I mean, when you say to someone, oh yeah, my horse got laminitis in November, they think, oh no, it's a springtime thing. It's all the nice summer grass going through. It's all year round. And unfortunately, once your horse has had laminitis, it will always be there. So your management of that horse is key. So you can take them off grass completely. Can restrict it, and the acid in the stomach, they might not be getting that. If you put your pony out in the field for 8 hours a day with a grazing muzzle, how is it getting enough fibre in to settle that stomach? So I would personally take my horses off the grass completely on a hard stand yard or a wood chip arena with little soaked hay nets around. So they're moving and they're still eating stuff to keep their tummy. And obviously soaking the hay, I think you can soak it for up to 12 hours. I know one lady used to soak it 7 o'clock at night and then leave it all the way through the night and then drain it out. So she's taking out all the sugars. You don't ever soak haylage, because obviously haylage is fermented, so by soaking it you're making all that bacteria just come to the party, basically. So it's just hay that we soak.
Is it right to say that in the summer you put them out at night rather than during the day for photosynthesis?
Yeah. So then again, the trouble is with that is that you get that window at about 6 o'clock in the morning where everything's like waking up. So it's really hard to gauge. I mean, the joys of turning them out at night means that they get a longer period to turn out. But I think, so with mine, they'll go out in the yard at night and then they'll go out for 4 hours on the field in the daytime, and then they'll come back in on the yard with soaked nets. But I know that not everyone's got that environment, you know, and it's not that easy for everyone to do that. So you've got to be advised by your vet, by your farrier is the best person to talk to about laminitis. The vet is great, but obviously a farrier knows feet the best. So they're the best ones to advise you. My podiatrist advised us on everything to do with Tippy's maintenance, down to what feed to give her. So there's lots of different ways to see it. So recognising it, how do we know if our horse has got laminitis? Yeah. So they lean back, so obviously, like we said, to alleviate that pressure. They won't. Yeah, so they lie down because they're trying to take any weight they possibly. I mean, if they're at that point that they're leaning back and they're lying down to relieve the pressure, then it's serious. So if you were, say you were to go up the field right now and you thought your pony might have laminitis, what would you think it would be? So shortness of stride. If you say you have to walk your horse down a grassy track and then you have to cross a stony lane to get to your field, if you walk down really, really well and then you get to the stony track and suddenly they're really, really tender, that's a good inclination that they are possibly brewing on a little bit of foot pain there. So yeah, so remember it starts from the feet and it comes up. So we'll be checking for the pulse. The temperature might not necessarily be spiked unless they're like in a lot of pain at that point where they're leaning back and they're lying down to relieve the pressure. And the breathing might be a little bit up because they're obvious. I mean, it will be painful. I mean, if you can imagine that pressure and that pain in the foot, and then imagine they've got it in both front feet. So they can get it all four, but it's mainly in the front feet. I'm not sure why it's mainly in the front feet. Maybe it's because the horse holds more weight of the horse actually on its front feet. So it could be that reason alone. So you're just trying to relieve that pressure. So the first thing you do, ring the vet immediately. Even if your horse has had laminitis in the past and you think, oh yeah, been there, done that, got a t-shirt, I know exactly what I'm talking about. If they're at that point that they're leaning back and they're really, really under pressure, you must call the vet because the horse needs instant pain relief, because by leaving it there in that much pain, that is when the pedal bone will come down through the sole. And again, like with colic, it can change in an instant. So the vet will say to you, how do you know it's what makes you think it's laminitis? And you'll go through all the symptoms, and then the vet will come out. Up here, we've got these. We sold our little ones the other day, but you can, if you wanted to do some instant relief. So these are like memory foam sponges. So you put the horse's hoof on here, and then you basically tape it up. There is a boot as well, but you basically tape it up. So you're giving that pony some instant relief. So if the vet's like, oh, I've got a colic emergency, which would come before laminitis, I'll be there in 4 hours. You can give it some instant relief here.
Horses would get it.
Sorry?
Just horses would get it.
Oh, donkeys have got it.
Yeah, donkeys. I don't know about cattle, to be honest. I don't see, but then cattle are cloven foot, so would they have a...
And the crest is hard as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. So the crest, or if your horse has got a hard crest, that means at some point in the past it's had laminitis.
Oh yeah, we get one of the Argos is really crusty.
Yeah.
Can't actually use it.
Yeah, yeah. Does she have EMS as well?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, that all comes with that. So yeah, so the EMS is it. The first, like we talked about with Podge the other day, the first thing that you'd look for. No, I said I wasn't going to go on down the EMS side road. Anyway, the first thing you'd see was she got random pockets of like fat. So on the flank area, on the wither area, and then that huge cresty.
Oh, donkey's got it as well.
Yeah. So yeah, so and EMS, Cushing's all go hand in hand with laminitis, etc. Unfortunately, and there's I mean, I wonder if like 20, 30 years ago, I don't think anyone had any idea what EMS and what have you were. Yeah, yeah. So but yeah, I mean, I think because Cushing's obviously is quite predominant in older horses. I think vets offer a free Cushing's test now, don't they? So if they're over 19, I think they offer a free Cushing's test. So
I think he's 14.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I mean, I get Tippy tested every year just in case, because I just want to know, because of her foot trouble, I don't want to get to the point that it's, oh yes, she's got EMS and she's got Cushing's. I want to know, I want to be there. Yeah, yeah, ready to, yeah. So it would just be another thing for my darling hypochondriac of a horse to have. She was only retired at 14, it's fine. So, but yeah, right. So, yeah, we went on all of that. So yeah, so on to the next one, azoturia. Who's heard of azoturia? Yes, yeah. So azoturia is tying up, Monday morning sickness. I think some people call it stocking up as well. So does anyone know what it is?
Is it
Do with the enzymes in the muscle?
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
like lactic acid builder?
Oh, it's just up in the corner there. Yeah, so it's a build. Yeah. So yeah, so it's a build up of lactic acid. So it's like a cramp in people. She's like, I wonder if I could get on the
She's
shoulder.
so sorry, she loves children and she's a bit beggy at the moment.
She's a Labrador.
She never used to be. She's out taking her to school. She's like, kids all feed her.
But I'm really cute though, so I'm either going to get on the sofa or I'm going to steal your crisps. So yeah, so it's a build-up of lactic acid. Okay, so mainly in the quarters of the horse. I don't have the big horse here, so I can't really show you. So yeah, so you know where you're sitting on the pony and you've got that bit behind the saddle? That's where it would basically be the hardest and most painful. Yes.
Is the back of the saddle called the cantle or something?
It is. What's the front of the saddle called? Begins with P? Yeah! So you've got the pommel and the cantle. Okay, so maybe that would be our next talk. So yeah, so it mainly affects the hind quarters. So signs that your horse has got azoturia.
They won't, well, they definitely don't come out the same.
Yeah.
They're stiff and their
Yeah.
hind legs are really
Yeah,
tight.
yeah. So like you, if imagine you've got cramp all the way down your legs and all the way down here, you don't want to move. You right?
Wow.
Who did?
Your cows can get melanitis.
Can they?
Some of her friends are dairy farmers.
That's amazing. I want to look into that because they've got foamy feet. So what? I wonder where the lamb. Yeah.
Well, they can get really sore feet, which is like.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
Perhaps it's called something else.
Yeah.
I couldn't live in a farm.
You right?
Zebras get melanitis.
Definitely. Definitely.
Oh, you.
Yeah. Mules can. Donkeys. Yeah.
Goats.
Well, if a cow can get it, maybe a goat can get it.
I hate goats.
Okay. That's what my husband said. Well, I asked him for some goats, and he was like, "No, they're the devil."
Hey.
You've got goats, haven't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to more actually, if anyone's looking to rebone goats.
No.
I said, we'll rebone them. I said, not you. You've got two.
You can have a volley if you want.
Yes, I do. And then you need a home. So I'll talk to you later anyway. So yeah. So recognizing the signs. So yeah. So shortness of stride. The temperature, pulse, and respiration will probably be up. What colour do you think the wee might be?
Oh, dehydrated.
Yeah. So it literally can be like coffee colour. Yeah. Really dark brown and syrupy and what have you. So do you remember Willow
Yeah.
when she used to wee?
Also, if you've been out on a ride, it can happen then, can't it, when you come back?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it actually happened to me when I was out on a ride. So when I was younger and I kept my horse at Bovey, I was out hiking on my own. Now she was quite nappy, so she basically started to shorten her stride up, and I thought immediately, oh, hang on, we're being a bit nappy here. But I looked down, her brushing boot had slipped over her hoof. So I got off, did her boots up, and then she wouldn't stand for me to get on, which was nothing unusual there. So I spent about 10 minutes looking around for something for me to use to get on, and dragged a log out. So that 10 minutes of her stood still and me trying to find something. I then got on and walked on, and she was absolutely fine. So I was like, yeah, I won that battle. We didn't nap, it's fine. So we walked on for a little bit more, and about 200 yards later, she started doing it again. And the only way I can describe it is like someone, like her legs were frozen, and she just started like really stiffly walking, like she couldn't bend her knee. And I got off, and a couple came towards me on their horses, and I asked if they could hold her so I could check her feet, if there was any stones. No stones. So they left me there scratching my head, and I rang the yard and said what was happening, and the lady at the yard was like, "Don't move, we're coming right out." So she drove this horse lorry up the sandy track, loaded her up. We couldn't even get her on the lorry. She couldn't even bend her knees to get on the lorry. It was quite distressing. We got her back to the yard and called the vet immediately. And yeah, she had a really bad case of azoturia, but hers was brought on through stress. So every time she came out of her stable, the horse in this door here would bite her. So she got so stressed and upset about leaving her stable that it caused this big boil of like anxiety, which came out in lactic acid and cramp. And then she turned into an agoraphobic freak. So she spent 24/7 in the stable. So then guess what happened? she got colic. So it was just a complete nightmare. But yeah, so she got azoturia really, really bad, and it took about 6 months for her enzyme levels to actually come back down. So the vet would come every week, take a blood test to see what was going on, and it took her about 6 months for it to all go back to normal. And then about a year later, she had another episode, and she just kept having episode after.
Injections, can't you?
You can,
Benefit?
you can.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's different now than what it was when I had her. We just changed her diet completely because she was on quite a high cereal base. Because being young, no matter how fast a whizzy your horse is, it can always go faster. So she was on quite a high cereal base. So that was where hers had escalated from. Was I had her on too much starch and not enough digestible energy. So she went on like Equilibra or something, and a big five. We upped her fibre, upped it, and found a new yard where she was like there with like 3 other horses, and she was absolutely fine. But it took about 2 years for her to actually go out in the field because she just wouldn't go to the field. She got so wound up and stressed that it just blew up into azoturia every time. So so she had that. So this. Yeah. I know. Basically, we decided the other week that basically owning horses is just about finding all the ways that they can die. Like, it's like, just counting all the different ways that they can kill themselves and die and stuff, isn't it? Like, well, what's wrong with you today? Yeah, so this is Tippy. I go up there every morning and she comes up the field and I'm like, oh God, is she sound? Is she sound? I don't think she's sound. Jack, I don't think Tippy's sound. She's probably sound. No, she's not. I don't know. Is she sound? Is she sound? Tippy, you sound? Yeah, I'm fine. So that's basically the story of my life. Is my horse sound today?
That's when she's not chucking herself on the floor in front of the gate.
Oh yeah. She's done that before. I left her for 2 days and got a phone call saying that they thought she was having a stroke. And
She was laid out flat,
Yeah.
with tongue hanging out.
Yeah,
wasn't
she was
So
literally,
that
there was
she
a
was
muddy
dead.
area in the gateway. The rest of the field was lovely. She was there in the gateway, out on the floor, in the mud, inhaling the mud, with her like literally, I thought she was dead. Got up there, drove up there like a madman, ran the handbrake on, got out of the car, Jimmy! She gets up, oh, you're here! Because I didn't water her for 2 days, because I'd been at work, working, earning money. So I just earning money to pay the vet's bill because I just rung the vet to say my horse was having a stroke. And the vet came there, temperature was fine, pulse fine, respiration fine, horse was absolutely fine, no colic, no laminitis, wasn't tying up, absolutely nothing wrong with her except she is a queen. So, yeah.
You did a video of a greyhound, a bloke on crutches.
Yeah.
He's limping. He's greyhound that starts limping.
Oh, I saw that.
Pretty fancy for vet though, someone was pretty sympathetic for his owner.
That's
He
amazing.
was copying the owner.
Yeah.
And people say animals don't have like these emotions and stuff. Yeah.
Really fancy for vet friends. Just copying what his owner was doing.
I love that. So so that was our colic, laminitis, and azoturia. Anyone got any questions? It doesn't have to be particularly about those or anything. No. Where's Molly gone now?
It's a good job she's not here for this bit because she'd fire off.
Had tea, lunch.
Oh, okay. Is she hungry? Yeah, do you have any questions? Are you sure?
When's lunch?
Do you want another biscuit? Yeah.
You sat on this one as well.
You got your hand up?
Oh, yeah.
So you check the temp. You weren't here for the temperature thing, were you? So you check the temperature. Do you know where you have to take the pony's temperature? Yeah. Yeah. So you've got the thermometer here. I won't open it because otherwise I'll have to buy it. I don't need any more. I've had project horses, so I have plenty of these. So there's your temperature. There's your thermometer. So you just press the button, and then you push it up your pony's bottom, and then it will beep when it's ready to come out.
And your pony may or may not stand still.
Yeah. So no. So you can either spit on it and make it all wet, or you can dip it in a bit of Vaseline or something just to help it on its journey. Yeah, we're thinking about that now. So yeah, so it's important obviously to have the basics in your first aid kit. So your thermometer is always a good one to have. Obviously, I said earlier on these are really good, but obviously you don't have to have these. If you've got anything, literally.
Are they literally just foam, are they?
Yeah, they're actually amazing, and I am going to order a couple of little ones for Shetland feet just to have in my.
Are they reusable or just?
Yeah, they're reusable, but obviously because they're memory foam, if I used it on Tippy, I wouldn't be able to use it on Tink or something because it would be to Tippy's feet. And although they're large, I'm pretty sure that would not fit Hodge's feet on it. No, his feet are about this thick. So yeah. Oh, he's got massive feet. Picking his feet out, it's like you have to hold his feet like a farrier to pick his feet out. They're massive.
Somebody else that's got some heat for a short period of time. You can put nappies on.
Oh yeah. So when I'm going to get told off now because I'm not. So if I get like so Tippy used to get abscesses after abscesses all the time, and it would cost me an arm and a leg with the poultice stuff here. So I would just use nappies or sanitary towels or something. Just use those because you can dip them in the hot water. They expand, but you slap them on and then wrap some tape around them. And just like that, another lady the other day said that she now keeps, because she's got a horse with Cushing's and laminitis and EMS, she has when you're doing carpet, so under here you've got the underlay stuff. So she keeps that, and basically she's stitched like 4 bits together, and that's what she uses. So she bought these the other day, but on the hinds, she's just used underlay. And I was like, jeez. That's a genius idea because it's dead cheap from the like people clear out house clearances and stuff, and they've got all this underlay that just goes to the skip. And so she gave him a tenner, and she's got like enough to last her like 10 years now. So yeah, yeah. You're right. What do you need to help a horse? Help a horse do what? Yeah. So if they've got tummy ache or something.